In Eastern Europe, the air is thick with tension. Poland and Russia, two nations with a long, painful history, now stand on the edge of a new and dangerous chapter. With armies mobilizing, borders hardening, and alliances tested, the question is no longer if, but when. This isn't just a regional standoff. It's a potential spark for a war that could engulf the continent. Old wounds, new weapons, and a fragile peace hanging by a thread. This is the front line of the future. A threat imposed on the heart of Europe. In the shadow of war, Central Europe holds its breath. The border between Poland and Russia is no longer just a geographical line. It's a political fault line, a strategic choke point, and the potential ignition point of the next great conflict on European soil. With tensions escalating, military drills intensifying, and rhetoric hardening on both sides, the possibility of an open confrontation is no longer a question of if, but when. Poland, a member of NATO and a linchpin of Eastern Europe, stands as a forward bulwark against an increasingly assertive Russia. Kaliningrad, the heavily militarized Russian exclave nestled between Poland and Lithuania, acts as a loaded gun pointed westward. Missile systems, air defenses, and mechanized brigades, Kaliningrad is not just a province, it's a statement of intent. Meanwhile, Poland has become the logistical artery for Western military support to Ukraine and beyond. This alone elevates its status and its vulnerability. But this is more than a military standoff. It is a confrontation that reverberates through the very soul of Europe. The tension is existential, deeply historical, and emotionally charged. What we're witnessing is not just a military buildup, but a geopolitical warning flare that could mark the beginning of a new era of war in Europe. As Polish troops dig in and Russian battalions inch forward, the world is left watching, with unease, with fear, and with the haunting question: are we truly heading toward the inevitable? Historical legacy, an old and painful rivalry. To understand today's tension, one must look into the past, a tangled history soaked in blood, betrayal, and domination. Poland and Russia have collided through centuries, not just as neighbors, but as rivals vying for survival and influence in Eastern Europe. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth once dominated the region, even occupying Moscow in 1610. That humiliation still festers in the Russian psyche. But revenge came swiftly and repeatedly. By the late 18th century, Poland was carved up in partitions, with Russia taking the lion's share. The very notion of Polish statehood was erased by imperial force, by Russian ink. Fast forward to the 20th century. The Soviet invasion of Poland in 1939, followed by the Katyn massacre, left wounds that never fully healed. The post-war communist regime, imposed and controlled from Moscow, turned Poland into a satellite state, strangling its sovereignty for decades. Poland's 1989 liberation from communism was not just a political shift. It was a rebellion against Russian domination. Since then, Warsaw has reoriented itself westward, joining NATO and the EU, seeking permanent distance from Moscow's shadow. But Russia has never forgotten, nor forgiven. Today, this historical baggage is weaponized. Russian propaganda paints Poland as an aggressor. Polish narratives remind citizens of past invasions. Both sides invoke memory as justification for military preparation. History here is not in the books, it's on the battlefield. The ghosts of empires still whisper in the ears of generals and presidents, and with every tank deployed, they scream louder. Poland, a military power in full transformation. In response to looming threats, Poland has begun a military metamorphosis unlike any in modern European history. Once seen as a modest regional force, Poland is rapidly transforming into the most powerful military on the continent east of Germany, and potentially even rivaling Western European powers. By 2030, Poland aims to double the size of its army to over 300,000 personnel. It's acquiring hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks, South Korean K-2 Black Panthers, HIMARS rocket systems, and F-35 stealth fighters. This is not symbolic. It's a doctrine of deterrence by overwhelming strength. And it's not just hardware. Poland has reinstituted military training programs, strengthened domestic arms production, and established new military academies. Civil defense is being revived. The Territorial Defense Forces, a hybrid between military and civilian militia, now patrol forests and border towns. This is a country on a war footing, not just anticipating conflict, but preparing to survive and win it. Poland is also constructing what some call a Fortress East, a fortified border with Belarus and Kaliningrad, complete with surveillance towers, fences, and bunkers. These are not just defensive installations, they are psychological barriers against Russian influence. In many ways, Poland is becoming NATO's eastern sword and shield, and with that, it steps into a new role. No longer the junior partner, but the tip of the spear. This is not a reaction. It is a transformation, a declaration. Poland will not be caught unprepared again. Russia, a rapidly expanding military machine. Despite setbacks in Ukraine, Russia's military machine continues to adapt, evolve, and project power with ferocity. What may appear as weakness to the West is, in many ways, a recalibration, a ruthless adaptation of warfare to modern realities. The Russian army is learning through loss, through blood, and through strategy. Its capacity to mobilize over 1 million soldiers, to mass-produce drones, missiles, and tanks even under sanctions, reveals a grim truth. Russia is not slowing down. It is digging in. Kaliningrad remains the most dangerous flashpoint. Stocked with nuclear-capable Iskander missiles, anti-aircraft systems like the S-400, and a large Baltic fleet, this exclave functions as a military dagger into NATO's side. Russia can paralyze airspace, sever land corridors, and launch first strike options from this small but strategic enclave. Moreover, Russia's hybrid warfare capacity, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and proxy operations is unrivaled. Poland has been bombarded with cyber intrusions, border destabilization via Belarus, and covert sabotage. Putin's doctrine is clear. The West is decadent and divided. Russia is destined to reassert control over its lost empire. In this worldview, Poland is not just a neighbor. It is a barrier to conquest and a symbol of defiance. And so, the Russian war machine grows, not in ignorance of its losses, but because of them. It is forging itself in fire, and its eyes are looking west. Geopolitical issues. Europe on the brink. Europe stands at a crossroads. The war in Ukraine has shattered illusions of lasting peace on the continent, and now Poland and Russia's standoff threatens to expand the battlefield. At the center of the geopolitical puzzle is the Suwałki Gap, a narrow corridor between Poland and Lithuania, sandwiched between Kaliningrad and Belarus. If Russia were to seize it, the Baltic states would be isolated from NATO. The consequences? Immediate escalation, possibly Article 5, possibly war. Energy routes, supply chains, refugee corridors, all hinge on Poland's stability. It is the spine of NATO's eastern posture. Any disruption could trigger a domino effect across the alliance, drawing in Germany, the UK, and the United States. But it's not just about alliances, it's about ambition. Russia seeks a multipolar world where Western liberalism is eclipsed by authoritarian power centers. Poland, meanwhile, sees itself as a guardian of European civilization. These are not just opposing interests, they are opposing worldviews. The Arctic is melting, the Middle East is burning, and yet here in the forests of Eastern Europe, the next great war could be born. The world watches, negotiates, and hesitates. But geopolitics waits for no one. The pieces are on the board, the game is underway. And the stakes? Everything. Economic and social impact. A nation on alert. Conflict doesn't begin with bullets, it begins with budgets. Poland has reoriented its economy toward military readiness, defense production, and strategic autonomy. This redirection carries both opportunity and strain. Billions are being poured into the arms industry. New factories, partnerships, and tech clusters are emerging, turning Poland into a European hub for weapons manufacturing. Jobs are created, innovation thrives, but at a cost. Inflation rises, social services stretch thin. Citizens ask, how much security is too much? Energy independence from Russian gas has triggered a painful but necessary transition. LNG terminals, nuclear energy projects, and green infrastructure are replacing Russian pipelines. It's a race against time and dependency. Socially, Poland is alert. Public awareness campaigns, civil defense training, and constant media coverage have instilled a sense of preparedness and anxiety. The war in Ukraine is no longer foreign, it's personal. Poles shelter Ukrainian refugees. They donate, they train, they remember. The Polish spirit is resilient but weary. The specter of war hovers over weddings, schools, and harvests. There is pride in preparedness, but also fear of what it means. War shapes not just armies, but societies. And Poland, already transformed by its past, is now being hardened by the present. Military scenarios: conventional war or nuclear threat? The question no one wants to ask now demands an answer. What would war between Russia and Poland look like? There are three primary scenarios. First, a conventional war, sparked perhaps by a border incident or false flag operation. Russia could push through Belarus, attempting to destabilize the Suwałki Gap. Poland, backed by NATO, would respond with overwhelming force. The result? A grinding multi-front war with enormous casualties. Second, a hybrid conflict: cyber warfare, sabotage, disinformation, and limited skirmishes. Poland might face massive blackouts, transportation chaos, or targeted assassinations. Russia would maintain plausible deniability, avoiding full-scale war while weakening Poland's internal cohesion. Third, and most terrifying, a nuclear scenario. Kaliningrad holds tactical nukes. A desperate or emboldened Kremlin might threaten or use them to paralyze NATO's will. Poland, with US nuclear forces behind it, becomes the unwilling stage for apocalyptic brinkmanship. None of these scenarios promise victory, only devastation. And yet, defense ministries across Europe game out these options daily. War games simulate refugee waves, energy crises, and escalation ladders, because the only thing more dangerous than being unprepared is assuming it won't happen. The line between the think tank and the battlefield has never been thinner. Polish society facing the threat: mobilization and resilience. Polish society is not just watching events unfold, it's participating in them. From the countryside to the capital, a spirit of readiness and resistance permeates daily life. Young people enroll in military academies and paramilitary groups. Farmers collaborate with the territorial defense forces, learning how to secure food chains and disrupt enemy logistics. Teachers attend workshops on emergency protocols. Doctors train for mass casualty events. Civil resilience is now policy. The government invests in bunker restoration, emergency broadcast systems, and public drills. This isn't paranoia. It's preparation born of history. The memory of occupation, resistance, and uprising is embedded in Polish identity. Warsaw's ruins from World War II still echo with lessons. So do the monuments to solidarity and defiance. But it's not all grim. There's unity, a national purpose. Political divisions blur when the threat is existential. The resilience is cultural, emotional, even spiritual. Songs of freedom are sung again. Folktales of heroes and rebels circulate with renewed relevance. Polish flags fly not just from buildings, but from hearts. This isn't just a nation ready for war. It's a society refusing to kneel again. International alliances, the weight of NATO and partners. Poland doesn't stand alone. It never has, and now it never will. NATO troops are stationed on its soil. American, British, German battalions train with Polish forces year-round. Joint exercises like Defender Europe are not just symbolic. They are rehearsals for real defense. The alliance's Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, is Poland's strongest shield. But it's also a responsibility. If Poland is attacked, the world could burn. Beyond NATO, Poland strengthens ties with Ukraine, the Baltic states, and Scandinavia. A new axis of security is forming. From Tallinn to Warsaw, from Stockholm to Kiev. The US presence, both militarily and diplomatically, is massive. Yet uncertainty lingers. Would Washington truly go to war for Warsaw? The answer lies not in treaties, but in deterrence. Poland is also turning east, toward Asia. Defense contracts with South Korea, tech cooperation with Japan, strategic dialogue with India. The message is clear. Poland is building global redundancy. Alliances are not just paperwork, they are trust networks. And in the shadow of Russia, trust is everything. Between inevitable war and the fragile hope for peace. And so we return to the question, is war inevitable? The signs are grim. The military postures, the historical grievances, the tactical vulnerabilities, all suggest a collision course. Yet within every war warning, there remains a whisper of peace. Back-channel diplomacy continues. Polish and Russian officials still communicate through intermediaries. European leaders, even fractured, pursue dialogue. The hope isn't loud, but it's persistent. Perhaps inevitability is not fate, but warning. A call to action, not for battle, but for prevention. If peace is fragile, then we must treat it like glass, not unbreakable but worth preserving. Poland prepares for war, but it does not seek it. And even in Moscow there are voices, muted but real, that know another war would mean ruin. History warns us. The present arms us. But the future? That's still unwritten. Let's hope it's not written in fire.